Hi, folks. Thanks so much for joining us today. Sorry for the bit of delay. I had a little glitchy problem going on here. It's all resolved. Today, we're so excited because we have with us Gary L. Wimmer as our guest. And Gary, for over 40 years, has been a professional psychic, a spiritual advisor, and he's referred to as a medium, an intuitive, a healer, a teacher, and a clairvoyant. And of course, today, you're joining us on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, which is 105.3 on the Gulf Coast, 107.7 in FM in New Orleans. Let me bring Gary. Sorry about that, Gary. We had a little bit of a technical snafu, but everything is on track. I just checked everything and we're good to go.
A snafu in today's world. In today's world, a snafu, a curveball, a surprise, a change.
I know. I did some computer updates before, and I think it's been a little glitchy since, but I see that we're live right now. So thank you. And again, sorry for the interruption, but I'm thrilled to have you here. We were just getting started talking. Thank goodness it happened early on. About your NDE, what happened to you. This was back in 1977, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And you were kind of explaining some of the pre-events that took place before that NDE, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So let's kind of pick up there and just tell everybody basically who you are and what led to that experience you had in 1977.
Well, I was the third of 7 brothers, raised Catholic, was an altar boy, was always curious about God and Jesus and why this and why that. I asked everybody questions, even the priest. How can you take 500 days penance off infinity? It don't work. It don't work. You know? So I had all these questions about God, spirituality, and life, and why this. And in college, I started reading a lot of Edgar Casey. A couple of people did a horoscope for me. Said, you got a lot of natural psychic ability. I was an electrical engineer, graduated in 1970, Vietnam. I served as a conscientious objector here in Austin at the Austin State School for mentally challenged folks. Got out 2 years later, still defense work. I thought, well, I'll just play music. I started playing music way back before the Beatles came out, lead guitar. But at the same time, I was doing readings. When I moved to Austin, a couple astrologers, like I said, urged me to get into that. So I started with just a regular deck of playing cards. I didn't want to remember a whole bunch of stuff about tarot or palmistry. I like to just feel stuff, you know? And so I developed my own way of interpreting cards. In 1977, I was traveling with a band. I needed a break, took a break, quit the band, staying with some roommates I didn't know very well in a very small duplex. And within 24 hours, my life had changed. I started picking up premonitions about people, who's going to call, what the phone. I'd look at a clock. Someone said they're coming over. I'd look at a clock and it'd jump up to 2:37. And I knew at 2:37, they'd walk through the door. This just came out of the clear blue. I had no idea why, but all of a sudden I couldn't sleep. I was up all night, all day, having these extreme flashes of intuition about things. I'd turn on the radio and it felt like they were talking symbolically about everything. And there was no neutral. I couldn't turn this off. I had no idea what was happening or why. So I was either receiving information or I found out that I was, by thought, maybe affecting the external world. I'd look at a stranger 3 blocks away and think something harmless, like scratch your head, and they'd do it. And I thought, man, did I make that happen? Or was I clairvoyant that it was about to happen? And I could not tell the difference.
Wow.
And if I made it happen, what if I thought car wreck? You know?
Right.
So this intensity built up. My roommate was very concerned about me, needless to say. On several occasions, once at a bar, I'm able to predict who's coming through the door and how they're dressed because I can transport myself out of the bar. Once at a restaurant, I imagined this lady way over in the corner who neither of us knew, out of the clear blue, write me a letter. Seemed harmless. And I'm doing this because I didn't know what I would normally do if I wasn't overwhelmed with this intense, this incredible knowing what my subconscious is thinking. The wall between my conscious mind and subconscious just kind of dissipated. I was living in a dream world, but it was pretty real. Tables were real, so forth. But so was the fact that 10 minutes later, this lady walked over and dropped a napkin on our table, said, "Why are you doing this to me?" I was affecting other people. It blew me away. I wanted to go ask her what she felt, but I was rather embarrassed.
Yeah.
So I was affecting people and affecting myself and not able to understand, but I kept feeling these guardian angels watching me.
Mm.
They seemed to call themselves the monitors, or I referred to them, and they said, "Yeah, that's cool." Now, I didn't see them, but I felt them several times. The only degree of sanity I kind of had in the middle of this, because I didn't know what was happening. And it seemed like everybody was talking about going somewhere, this all this symbolism. Well, after a week of this, I couldn't take it anymore. And I left my apartment. I was walking somewhere. I'm not sure. Maybe my girlfriend's house. I didn't know. I was just lost. I couldn't sit in my claustrophobic little apartment. And
Hmm.
so I'm racing down Guadalupe Street here in Austin. And by this time, I'm panicked. I'm crying. I'm praying. A bunch of people around me looking at me. I didn't care. They didn't know what to do. And I almost felt like telling them to, don't get too close because I might blow up. You know, it's the way I felt. It just, I never felt such terror because I could not turn this off and did not know why until all of a sudden I felt this warmth. It's in February of warmth. And I look up and there's this huge light, like a spotlight shining it down. And my first thought was if I had a ladder, I could touch it because
Mm.
it's 6 feet ahead of me, not 3, not 10. And I looked around and none of these people who were watching me, because a rather big circle had formed around me out of concern or panic or whatever. But I was certainly not acting like everybody else on the street, crying and praying and talking to things. And like I said, I didn't care. I looked back up at this light, and it looked like it was coming down from a crystal table about that thick, not that thick, not that thick. And around this crystal table were the palms of these 7 white-robed, spiritual-looking beings. Their faces were kind of grayish, so you couldn't tell it, as if our facial expressions don't matter, our sex doesn't matter. It's just that we're here. And I asked them, they asked me, "Do you trust us?" In one voice, real warm, real comfortable. And by this time, all the fear had disappeared completely. I was mind blown. I felt so, wow, what is this? And we had a short conversation, I guess, although all they kept saying is, "Do you trust us?" And finally, I said, "Yes." Long story short, I wrote about in my book, A Second in Eternity. Ba-bam. It even has the police records in there. This is pretty well documented by police records and hospital records and so forth. Within a second, I was hit head on by a speeding car. Bam! I was out. I didn't feel it. I was outside my body, watching my body get tumbled over. I started expanding outward in all directions. I saw Austin turn into a little dot, then the whole planet, as if I was going inside me. My body's on Guadalupe Street. And I see people running out of their cars and screaming, and the driver. I didn't care. And within no time, I didn't even know who I was. And it was just this beautiful experience. I was expanding outward in all directions. And from that expansion, instantaneously, I realized that that's how souls leave. We go out all directions at once. We don't go out like an arrow. And at birth, we collapse in from everywhere and take an impression of the whole universe and of our our trip, our voyage through this solar system, imprints of all the planets. That does matter. We're collapsing into the mother at birth. So I realized that instantly, though I had no awareness it was I who was realizing. It was just exposed to me, and I was thrilled. It was pure sensation. And then I went to the edge of the universe, it felt like, just expanding, and it felt like there was a level of consciousness that I went through that again seemed to name itself. It was like a rainbow, it was colors. And I felt like that level of consciousness allows us, when we enter into time and space and physicality, going through this realm of the colors, has to do with senses. And it endows us when we come to the planet as an individual soul to use our brains and eyes and senses to tap into who we are and where we came from to begin with. So that's why we go through this level of consciousness called the colors. And then I kept expanding outward, and all of a sudden I noticed I was outside of this universe. And I was looking up at a sky of infinite universes. It's like a starry sky everywhere. And I came out of that one, and wow, they're infinite. And they seem to roll up into a tunnel of light. Best description. Gray clouds, silver clouds spinning around. And I'm zooming through it, very aware of what I am experiencing, but not aware that it's me that's experiencing it. Just pure sensation, as if a thrill ride or an education. Or what it was a trip to infinite mind. Because in no time at all, I was coming out of this tunnel of light, and I was in this infinite blue, sky blue void, everything and nothing. And instantaneously, I recognized it as infinite mind. It had no beginning. It had no end. It certainly has no bias. It's infinite creativity all the time, everywhere, multi-universes, and it's beyond any sort of bias, or it's just infinite creativity, no limit. And there was two possibilities. It exists, which it does, and there's all this happening, or it wouldn't exist and nothing would exist. There'd be nothing. There's no in between. It's either all or nothing. And then more fascinating was at the core of this infinite blue creative mind, I can see civilizations and galaxies and planets so much I can't even, look at the universe. You'll see just one section of one universe of which I saw, unaware that it's me. But at the core of this, I felt this resonance, this hum, this warmth of infinite love, which most people have had a NDE agree that that's the one thing we experience in common is infinite love. The variations, the ways we get there and back are vastly different, but that's the one overall common thing. And I felt that too. Again, not knowing it was me.
But yeah, you didn't experience anything religious per se, like you didn't see Jesus. You didn't
saw infinite creativity in every form, in every bias, in every the bias came from being human or on other planets. It didn't come from infinite mind. Infinite mind just made everything possible. And you're one and I'm one, and so is the cross on your neck, and the molecules in the shades behind you. Everything is a manifestation of infinite mind imagining itself. And even when you look at the universe, the numbers, the correlation, the right habitable zone, everything that makes us exist, because if we didn't exist, we wouldn't be talking this way.
Right.
But everything that made it exist, it's not like God sat down with a slide rule and figured out pi. It's the instantaneous thought of manifestation made all the numbers and evolution just work.
Right. So let me ask you a question. Before you got hit by this car, before your NDE, for that whole week, you were experiencing what folks would think is almost like a psychotic breakdown in a way.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, that's even today, most people
absolutely
assume that. Clearly it wasn't through your eyes and experience. So when you were having these visions, or when you were having these thoughts of like scratch your head and the person would do it, or write me a letter, did you see these things visually? How did you perceive these thoughts? Were they just words in your head, or were you seeing like images flashing?
I saw images. I felt thoughts. A stranger would walk by in the street. I could feel what they're thinking about. Like I said, I could see people walk through the door at a club. And interesting enough, when we entered the club 30 minutes earlier, right at the door, I felt the same premonition about this place right here, just not 2 feet back, but right here. And I turned around and kind of looked out in the parking lot, wondering when I felt that. But 30 minutes later, when we were in Soap Creek Saloon here in Austin, Texas, it was too loud in the band room. I sat at the bar, thought about taking a break because everybody walked by, I could feel them. And all of a sudden, I'm standing outside that spot. And I can see people walk right through me. And boy, I opened my eyes and I'm sitting on the bar stool. The door swings open.
Wow.
They came walking and dressed exactly as I'd seen them. And there was, I wrote 250 pages about what I went through. Uh, but there's better yet part of it.
And there's no narcotics involved. You weren't
Oh,
drunk.
no,
None of
no,
that stuff, right?
no, no. I mean, no drug could ever do that.
Yeah, I
So
guess
I'm in
not.
this infinite mind, in this infinite creativity, unaware that it's me, but I feel like for some reason I'm witnessing it and I'm drawn back. And I'm drawn back through this tunnel of light. I'm drawn closer to somewhere. I didn't know where. I liked where I was. I was apprehensive about where I'm going because I had no memory of me or how I got here. I'm just now I'm coming back
Okay.
with a holographic imprint of what I saw. Completely. Still not aware it's me, but as I got closer to this planet, this galaxy, I felt like, oh, I got something to do with this, and maybe I know someone here. And then
Mm.
I saw 3 sets of pictures. One was all the chaos we've been going through. I saw 9/11. I saw COVID-19. I saw this extreme division in every country in politics. And that's exactly what's happening now.
And again,
Revolution
this
everywhere.
is back in 1977, right?
Correct. Correct. I saw images of grown men here in the United States or kids with AK-47s killing people. And AK-47s were not in the hands of people then. So I thought, no, this can't happen. It was pretty horrific, but I saw why. Because the next series of pictures were the results after we fix all the holes in our boat. That's why we're seeing all this now to know what the issues are, the flaws are, so we can fix them. Our societies, ourselves, you name it. And we got plenty. And we're
Oh,
getting
yeah.
a 3D IMAX 365 24/7 showing.
Yeah.
And we get to pay attention and heed the call and grow and evolve and learn or ignore it all. But that's what I saw in the first series of pictures. All the second series of pictures were the age of Aquarius, 50, 100, 150, 200 years from now, when we really have resolved a lot of our conflicts, have resolved a lot of our issues. And I don't know if there's going to be 1 billion people left or 200 million or 30 billion, and we're in space. I don't know. There's so many possibilities. But what is inevitable is we're going to get there one way or another. We're going to the next level of human consciousness, How many troopers? Who knows? So that was the second series of pictures, the beautiful world to come. It made the first set of pictures make sense. The third set of pictures were about this musician in Austin. I had no idea who that was. I saw him playing in different places in Europe. Then I finally realized, wow, that's a picture of me. I'm playing the piano in Europe. I didn't even play the piano then. I certainly didn't think about going to Europe. And then all of a sudden, I saw my body in
Mm-hmm.
the middle of the street and people screaming. And I went, wow, that's me. And I jumped into my body like that. And as soon as I opened my eyes, there's red hairs all over my face. This driver is petrified, terrified. Man, I tried to stop. I could. And he's leaning on me. And I just said, man, I need to get away, get up. I just pushed him
Yeah.
away. And I needed to sort out what the hell was happening. I had no pain. I felt no physical shock whatsoever. I didn't have a scratch, not bleed. The whole front end of the car is banged in. The windshield's broken. People screaming and hollering. And I'm standing up, walking around, talking to people, trying to ask them if they saw these monitors. That did not look good.
Yeah.
In no time, cops, ambulance, police. I was going to leave the scene because I wasn't hurt, and I'll deal with this later. It's just too intense, man. I'm trying to justify understand what just happened to me.
So you didn't have a black and blue nothing on your body.
No, I didn't get a scratch.
That is remarkable.
Oh, the police records are in the book. The book, yeah. No, they took me to the hospital. First, the cops, ambulance, and police came there and they're looking for this body in the
Yeah.
street. And I'm up talking to people, and I had to point myself out. I'm the one you're looking at, and all the people, yep, it's him. How are you standing? Same way you are, on your feet. I had so much energy, man. What I didn't know is how to figure out what to do next, because all this confusion, cops and ambulance, just let me go home. Let me walk home. They wouldn't do it. Asking the questions to all the witnesses. What happened? And they said, well, this guy walking down the street crying and praying and looking up and talking to some, and then got hit by this car. And I couldn't deny it. And they kept asking me. And every time I tried to explain, because what happened was directly relevant to what I'd been through for a week and what I just experienced. And they saw none of that, could not understand it. And I realized this ain't going to float.
Right.
They're not going to believe it. They're not going to understand. So real quickly, I realized I'm probably going to have to explain this as best as possible to a lot of people, but none of them are going to get it. So it's just the way it's going to be. So I just didn't. Next thing I knew, taking me to the hospital, x-rayed me, checked me out, not hurt, rolled me over in the corner of the emergency room. And yes, about 20 minutes later, this man came walking in, handsome gentleman. And I'd seen a premonition in him. He was a psychiatrist. I knew where he was from, knew about his wife and his kids. And how do you know this? I said, man, doc, right now, I know everything. I just can't turn it off. And I started telling him some things, and he's just mind blown. And I said, can I just go home? And he goes, we can't let you go home. We're going to have to commit you to a psychiatric hospital. I mean, you didn't even get hurt. You're talking about, I'm sorry. I mean, I kind of believe you. I want to. I've heard about this. I've read about it. I've never seen anybody who, I said, you are now. You're talking directly to someone who just had that experience, and you're a
Yeah.
doctor. You ought to know this. You ought to look into this, not commit me. Ask me what happened. But that didn't happen. They had to commit me. They took me to jail for 2 days till they could get order of protective custody signed by my family, because, of course, they're concerned. Gary's a little weird, but this is one of the weird ones. How did you not get hurt?
Yeah.
You want to hear the story or not? If you don't, that's cool too, because I barely believed it, but I couldn't deny it. And that was in 77. Over the next several years, I started seeing more and more of these events that would happen. Well, first they took me to a psychiatric hospital. They put me in there for 10 days. And at the end of 10 days, they got all the psychiatrists together and my staff, and they have to decide whether to seek another 10-day mandatory commitment or to let me go. And I told them, I said, I know you guys don't believe this and hard to understand, but you're doctors. You should be asking me about this. Directly related to higher consciousness and schizophrenia, and all those things are kind of woven together. And here you got a perfect proof. Yeah, I'm sane. I can handle everything. Look what I just handled, man. So they let me go.
Yeah.
I had a relapse in a month or so. Had to do another little tour because this extreme energy just kept taking over me. 8 months later, I had been asking my guides, please explain to me why I got this beautiful experience. I mean, I'm eternally grateful. I know I saw infinite mind. I saw how everything works. From our souls come here to evolution, although I couldn't write a book of biology about it. I saw it. I saw the mechanics of things. I saw how numbers worked just from infinite mind saying, let there be pi. Bam. Okay, that's it. 3.141. It doesn't matter. It's all created by infinite mind, by thought alone. And that our thoughts are power. And you people ought to be asking me this. And they agreed that I was sane and balanced and I could go. 8 months later, my guides appeared. I didn't see them this time. I felt them. They kind of were. I was out on my porch playing my guitar. Excuse me. Pardon me about that.
Oh, no worries.
And I was asking my guides once again, why me? I gotta know. Please. I've asked y'all. Please. I mean, thank you. You don't have to answer, but I'd like to know. I'm kind of curious. And at that point, I felt them in my front yard and they shot this sort of light in my head like a laser, and traffic stopped, wind stopped, time stopped. And at the same time they shot this light in, I could hear them speaking the same words that I started seeing in like the end of a trailer, the movie, and the
Mhm.
word, and it happened instantaneously, but seemed like it took a long time because everything had stopped. Time enough for me to clearly digest it. And what the message was, paraphrasing, was you got this experience because you always wanted to know. You're always asking. You're always asking about God. You're an altar boy. You learn to do readings. You're reading books. You're searching, searching, searching. And finally, we decided, okay, you can handle the truth. We'll take you and bring you back. And the car accident gave us a perfect way to do it. You know, you didn't have to say, I trust you, but I'm not sure what would have happened had I not. There's just no choice at that point. Something's happening. Yeah, I trust you. I don't know,
Yeah.
which was the best decision in my life. Uh, and they said you got to watch your diet, your emotions, your intent, your extreme. I'm a double Scorpio. I got a lot of energy. Um, and I can be quite an extremist emotionally, psychically, spiritually, mentally. And with that, they said a lot of this you've seen. Actually, they said you will see all this in your lifetime. Not all of it, because some of it was the age of Aquarius, but you know, you will see how we're getting there. In other words, it made sense to me. Okay, you're making us all recognize our faults, our fears, our doubts, so we can fix them, deal with them, get over them. You know, we're not, human nature is not being tortured. I mean, we created this karmically one way or another, this planet we live on and each other. We're responsible. Buck stops here, individually and collectively. And so they said, you wanted to know how this works, and that's how you work. That's your gift. That's your answer. That was the
Mm.
second most beautiful day of my life when I realized this is September, October 77.
So you kind of had confirmation as to like why you were chosen to experience what you did, because I'm sure there's millions of folks that want to know the same thing that you did, but
Be
none of,
curious. Be curious. Be
yeah,
curious. Ask questions. Ask. Dig. Seek. Talk to your guides. Meditate. There are techniques and reasons things happen. There's no such thing as a coincidence or an accident. Well, you know, humans make what we call accidents, but everything happens because of cause and effect. Something made it happen. And
yeah,
if
there's
we
a divine purpose behind.
absolutely, absolutely.
Why did they put you in jail before they admitted you in a hospital? Like that seems so.
No, they took me to the hospital first.
Oh, and then they put you in jail while you were waiting for approval from your family.
Correct.
Why
So I
didn't
was
they keep you in the hot? That seems so harsh.
what's put me in.
In other words, you were in the hospital first, and then they put you in jail for 2 days while you were waiting for your family
Right.
to see papers.
They had
That
to get the they had to get the paperwork, and there's the emergency room. I wasn't hurt at all. They can't keep me there. In fact, that's what the doctor said.
you were in the
He said,
emergency.
You're
Okay.
not hurt. We can't keep you. You're x-rayed. You don't even have any glass in your head, and the windshield's broken. We don't understand this at all." And right before I hit the car, I saw again a crystal shield about this thick, kind
Oh
of like
no.
this, between me and the car, protected me as I rolled over the car. It still banged in the bumper and broke the windshield. And in the book, there's a document from the lawyer of the owner of the car. They sued me for damages.
That's cray.
It's
Oh, so
absolute fact.
I'll have the link to your website and your two books because you have one on lithomancy as well, right?
Mhm.
I'll put them in the description of this video on my YouTube channel. So folks, be sure to head on over there and check out this book. It's spectacular to read. Okay, so I'm just so intrigued with your hospital stay too. I know a lot took place during that when they admitted you. Now you said you came out. They said there's nothing wrong with you, and then a few months later, 8 months later, you were readmitted. Did you
No, actually,
readmit?
about 2 months later. Actually, it was. I was readmitted on April 1st, Fool's Day, on 1977. After I got out of the Shoal Creek Hospital in February, 77, they gave me a lot of lithium carbonate
Oh
that is,
boy,
for schizophrenia. And
yeah.
I quit taking it. I didn't like it. Boy, it lugged me out. So the intensity started building up again. Within a couple of weeks, I started feeling things again and predicting things. And my roommates got very concerned this time. They didn't want me to go get killed by a car or something. So they
Yeah.
called my parents. And
Oh,
on April 1st, my mom's at the door in Austin, Texas. And, they're middle class folks. I'm living in a duplex that costs $75 a month. I mean, it's a little house without even wallpaper. Because that's all I could afford. I wasn't playing any gigs then. I quit the band, had a little bit of money, but not much, and blew my mother away April 1st, 77. But she came in. I wondered why she was, and then she started telling me that your roommates called me about, and I started thinking, yeah, I have been entering that altered consciousness again. Because it comes on you and it doesn't, it's hard to remember what it's like to not have it the day before. It's hard to think what normal life's like without it. It's like if you're blind, it's hard to, I guess, hard to imagine sight, you know? So it was, so yeah, on April 1st, 77, she took me down to Brackenridge Hospital, and there's even a record of that in the book. $15 is what they charge at the emergency room to evaluate me. And they said, he needs to go back to a psychiatric hospital. And I didn't argue. This time I went to Austin State Hospital. It was like a big zoo. Instead of a private room, it was 40 people in bunk beds. But I survived it, and I was entertaining all the people. Same thing I did at the Shoal Creek, the first hospital visit.
now were you like prophesizing for these folks? Were you predicting futures? Were you looking into their lives? Like what happened to you in the hospital? Like what
I was
was?
more of a I was more of a good old guy entertainer. I was playing piano, playing guitar, uh, trying to inspire people. Because what I just went through is the most inspirational thing I could. I just saw light and power everywhere, even for example, in the Austin State Hospital here, there's a lot of elderly folks, and they were senile, and everybody's concerned because they're spaced out and they think they're still at work, and all I could see their mind kind of peeking over the edge, and then they'd come back and think they were still at work and kind of peeking over, kind of like a natural process of when am I going to dive? The
Mm,
water's right, got a good, nice temperature. When am I going to dive off the board or the cliff? You get to make that decision to some degree,
yeah.
to some degree.
Now, after you had your NDE, you didn't obviously know what they were. Back then, hardly anyone knew what they were. I think they were just starting to surface
Correct.
up. Didn't somebody just that recently wrote a book about it to some doctor who
Well,
was
Dr. Raymond Moody at the time was written,
right?
yeah, he'd written a couple books about it. I didn't discuss it with people until years later. My roommates, my family, courts, judges, police department, you know, people I met in the psychiatric hospital who I never saw again, really. But there's a handful of people who were around me then, they knew about it, but I didn't talk about it much because I didn't quite know how to put it in context. And actually, it was about 10 years later when I started sharing my story with people. I didn't start writing the book until 1997. It was the 20th anniversary. It was February 7th, 1977, 1997. I was in Copenhagen, living in Europe as a musician. And before I was about to perform, we're all eating dinner, and I told them this story, and someone said, "You ought to write a book about that."
Yeah.
So I started writing the books then, of course, learned more to write more and learned to edit and got the paperwork and all that other stuff. So I started in 97, 20 years after it happened to the day almost. Uh, and my original draft was pretty weak because, writing is rewriting.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you seem to have a really good recollection of what your NDE was like. I mean, all these years later, you
Ooh,
recall it with a very good, vivid memory of a lot of.
clearest thing in my life. Clearest
Now,
thing in my life.
the thing that stood out to me was when I think you said during the first wave you saw 9/11 happen. What did you exactly see? Did you see planes into buildings? Like what?
What
That
I
must.
saw was a snapshot among thousands of these people watching this TV, and they're all wearing this blue uniform, kind of blue like you've got, and we're all looking at this TV shocked, and this plane goes through a building. That's what I saw. In 20 years later, in 9/11, I'm living in Europe, and I'm working on a cruise ship. We're coming into Sweden 4 in the afternoon, and one of the Swedish guys who I'd been talking to said, "Man, I think y'all just got hit by a terrorist attack." I ran down to the crew room where the TV was,
Mm.
looked up and saw that second plane, looked around, saw all these people in blue uniforms. That picture I'd seen 20 years earlier, but I had no idea what context or who these people were or why that picture. So I see these periodic things with COVID-19. When it started coming out, I remember seeing like an earth that was starting to get covered in oil. And I actually thought it was a big oil leak. They covered
Uh,
the whole, but it wasn't. It was COVID because I kept seeing that picture. The more they're talking about COVID, and I thought, wow, this is going to go around the whole planet. You know, um,
so none of that really, you couldn't connect the dots really until the event unfolded. And then you were like, wow, that's exactly what I saw
right?
during.
Basically, yeah. It's like I can't predict with absolute certainty, but I could certainly see some changes. I was on a show about a year ago talking about seeing how the country was going to get divided. The Mississippi River was probably going to get pretty, a couple miles wide. We're going to have a lot of geological changes. Uh,
I heard that too.
yeah, go ask the geologists. They know more about it than I do. But a guy that lived in St. Louis said, "Man, I don't want to hear that. I live on the Mississippi River. You're scaring me." I said, "Well, it ain't happening tomorrow. And I'm not
Right.
saying it's going to happen overnight. It may take 50 years, 2 inches a year faster than now or so. I don't know. I can't predict it. I don't try to time it. All I saw was the division in, East America and West America,
I want
and
to
I
go
don't
back.
know for a fact it's going to happen. It may not.
Right.
What
Well,
I
yeah.
didn't see, what I didn't see is big global nuclear war. And I hope I'm right about that.
Thank God for that.
I
Yeah.
didn't see that, but I did see a lot of which we're seeing today, currently, especially right now. I saw every country was in a revolution, divided. And I saw this in 77. All these countries in Africa and Europe and Russia and China, and everybody's screaming. Uh, so, yeah, I saw a lot of this, but I couldn't prevent it or predict it or put a date on it or so forth. And oftentimes I don't recognize that's what I saw until, oh, this, okay. But
Yeah.
to some degree,
If you were having a remote viewing or experience, or, well, I don't want to speak for you, but it sure sounds like an NDE to me. Maybe you want to address that.
it's like a lot of things when we start talking about spiritual, psychic, mental ability, we break it into nice, convenient categories because we're human and it helps us separate apples from pears. Uh, but in the world, apples and pears have one thing in common with you and I, it's subatomic particles that make it all matter.
Right.
So, at what point do you want to call it NDE or imagination or experience? Or they're all kind of intertwined together. Um,
Mm,
I didn't know the term NDE,
right.
and mine happened very differently than a lot of people. It did happen through an accident, but I went through a weak premonition. I saw all this happening before it happened. I just didn't know how to put it together. I saw the cop, I saw the lights, I saw the ambulance, I saw the psychiatrist talking to me. I saw a psychiatric hospital. I thought one of my friends was going to go crazy. It was
Wow,
me.
it was you. He also said, were there others in your family past known as being seers, or did they tell stories about this? Is anybody in your family psychic, basically? Do they have a
Well,
gift,
they
or
are.
just
All people are, but they certainly don't live the world I do.
yeah?
They've all got jobs. They've been businessmen. They've got families. I've never been married, never had kids. Uh,
Wow.
I'm in a very loving relationship now with a lady for 15 years. But we're common law married basically. But
Yeah.
no, I never had kids. I was never booked up much in my life. I lived on the edge of insecurity, uh, the way most people look at it most of my life. But to me, it was just the way I was going to live because I wasn't a rock star. I wasn't
Mm,
rich and famous. I was struggling to stay employed as a musician. And to be honest with you, that was quite satisfying. If I get paid for doing what I like to do, I don't expect to be a rock star. Most musicians
right.
ain't. Hmm.
Yeah, most musicians feel that way too. If they're doing what they love to do,
Yeah,
they're
you like to do it? They're paying me for this. I'd be doing it at home for free.
now. You said early on that people told you that you had psychic abilities, and then you started doing readings for people and stuff like that. Um, there's a lot of people out there that claim to be psychic and they're not. What was that experience like for you? Did you have customers where you could see their loved ones? Were you able to predict um, prophecies for them, maybe past, present, future? Like, what were those readings like for you?
I suppose I've developed a system like everybody does. And basically, this system I use to give readings, I originally started with just regular deck of playing cards, and I still use regular deck of playing cards. My own system. Here's what the numbers mean to me. I, you know, because really it doesn't matter. You can read anything if you're connected to the universe. Everything's interconnected. It doesn't matter if you're reading planets or tea leaves or.
Gives you
I happen to like this system because it uses 16 stones, and the lady in 1980 taught me this. Uh, there's Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto. That's the 10 planet stones. Life, love, luck, commitment, timing, and place. That's the personal stones. That's 16. If I do it in person, which I don't do anymore because I don't travel much, and or if I do it over the phone, I have someone say drop, and I drop the stones into a circle of leather, and I read them like a clock. 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock. How they touch, how they point. And most of it I learned myself. The lady who showed me this system, I met her in 1980. She did a reading for me. I'd never seen this. I thought, wow, this is neat. You're just using stones, not referring to a book, and it's kind of free form. And you show me how you do this. She said, well, I'm having a class next week. So I came to the class. It was pouring rain. I was the only one who showed up, her and I, she and I. And so she showed me in about 5 minutes how she does it because we both wanted to get home because it was raining too intense. The next day, I took 16 stones and put little labels on them, Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, so I could remember them, you know, and started practicing. That's the extent of my education on this system. Moral of the story, you can read 1,000 books or you can learn somewhat on your own. I think a combination is probably the best thing. She started me, but it wasn't an in-depth lesson. It's like, here's kind of how you do it and here's what you look
right.
for, and you got to feel it. And I do.
You use your own intuition on basically your own psychic abilities
Right.
when you read the stones.
And I always try to tell people, no matter what I say, you got free will. You can go pick up and move to Idaho tomorrow if you want to. Would I know that or see that? Maybe, maybe not. But that is a fact. But the lady who taught me this, the best psychic I've ever known, she predicted a couple things that would most likely happen if I didn't do this or if I did do this. So I took this road and steered a different fate, much more favorable for me and other people.
Mm.
By an awareness that if I don't do something, this will end up here. So did I change fate? Did she see what's written in stone? Well, it's a little bit of all the above. It's not an exact science. Life ain't an exact science, it's a learning experience, a discovery.
Yeah. Corey wants to know, are your visions reoccurring things or just one-off moments?
I suppose a little bit of both, because I still reflect back on what I saw in 1977 in a split second of Earth time with a million flashcards. And no, I can't remember them all, but sometimes I see them and get reminded. And I don't try to drive myself nuts making predictions. I'm 77. I'm, going through some age issues, trying to just make a living and, keep my little world together. Uh,
Absolutely.
I share my car with my lady or vice versa. We're one car family. So everything's kind of condensed and efficient and quiet and calm.
Well,
Um,
that's good. That's a good thing.
I spent 30 years traveling, lugging heavy gear, 40 years, playing music all over and doing readings at the same time. But last 20 years has pretty well become a full-time thing.
Yeah. I want to ask you how you feel about dying and death. But before I jump into that, I just want to remind folks that you're listening to Ethereal Encounters Unveiled with our guest today. And we're super excited to have him with us. And I'm going to be showing you his website, GaryLWimmer.com. And I think it's /psychic. And I'll bring it up as soon as I'm done with this brief intro. We're live on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, which is 105.3 and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. And I thank you again so much for joining in. So I want to talk to you about death, but I want to share your website. So, of course, Gary has a lovely website here. And you can book an appointment, right, Gary, if somebody wants to have a psychic reading with you?
Well, contact me. I'm usually a couple weeks booked up. And so if you'll email me, I'll put you down. And when I get a little clearance, I'll get back with you because I've got a lot of requests and I go through them as effectively as I can. But yeah, do email me. Just be patient.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So, how long do the readings last for? Typically, are they done through Skype, through Zoom, through the phone, all the above?
I use the phone, my landline, the most efficient, a speakerphone. I do them over the phone for 30 minutes for $80 and 45 for 120. I record the reading, email the link later, but I only do about 2 readings a day now. I don't, but I want to stay effective in my ability to speak. And I got a lot of other things I'm dealing with at my age.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, if people want to contact me, feel free to. Just be patient. You have the 2 pictures of my books up there, and you can click on that or go to Kindle or Amazon directly. The Second Eternity is about my near-death experience. Lithomancy is about this system, and it's really more of a kind of a textbook, but it's pretty well documented on how I do readings and what the planets represent and so forth.
Okay, and it's really nice. You have a lot of comprehensive information here about lithomancy as well. If folks are interested, the power of lithomancy and so on. I mean, I've heard of that before. I've never had a reading or anything like that, but again, I'll have the links to where you can find all of his wonderful information. So, tell us about how you feel about death and dying. Tell us about before, how you felt about death before your NDE and how that changed your perspectives on it afterwards.
That's a good question because most people who've had an NDE, they're 2 segments of their life before and after.
Right.
And they're different. I I couldn't imagine even as a kid some God making a human being with passion and error and stuff we do, going to hell for eternity for anything. Period. I never believed that. As I was mentioning to you earlier, raised as a Catholic, I even asked all the priests and nuns, how do you take 500 days off eternity for penance? 50 Hail Marys, you get 500 days credit. Come on, the math don't work. So I had, I guess, a fairly confident feelings. If you're a good guy, you could probably have a better chance before God or whatever. Nothing nothing that I really feared because I felt like I'm doing the best I can. During my NDE, I realized that wow, we're all connected to infinity. We all came here many, 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 many times before. We all came from the same spot, infinite mind. Our challenge is here on Earth. It ain't out there. The best you can do about
Mm,
death or fear of death is live a good life now because there's nothing to fear there. It's beautiful. Our challenge is here. I'm getting older. I'm 77. I'm certainly going through some, 77-year-old issues, but, and I wish I didn't. I wish I was 25, but I ain't. Everybody ages. Everybody goes through stuff. But as
oh
far as
yeah.
what happens on the other side, do not fear it because you have no control over it other than your attitude right now. And if your attitude right now is cool, let that glide you right into the next level smoothly. I mean, nobody wants to die a horrible death, uh, but on the other side is absolute beauty, peace, serenity, calmness, no judgment. You judge yourself. You get to look in the mirror of yourself and your experiences, and you get to decide if and when and how to come back. You know, we do get free will. You can stay in purgatory or mingling around wherever for eternity because there's no time rush. It's eternity. you know?
Now I've interviewed a bunch of people that have had NDEs, and of course everybody's is so different. But I've noticed most of them are asked if they want to come back or not. But you didn't have that experience. You just zoomed back into your body, correct?
Yeah, I didn't get to ask, or I wasn't asked. It was sort of like automatic. And I look at my NDE compared to a lot of people's. I feel like to some degree I went from the basement all the way through the attic, all the way through, and instantly all the way back in just 2 seconds of Earth time, uh, second or 2 seconds. Uh, but in that, I saw there's no reason to fear death. I wish I could prove that to people, but I can't prove to people the Earth is round. Really, if you all
Right.
think it's square, go to town. It ain't. So, but never fear death. God's not going to take us at our most vulnerable point and dangle a heads or tails in front of us. And come on, there's infinite justice, infinite fairness, and
Yeah.
infinite sensitivity to humanness. That's why you don't get shocked and terrorized. Now, some people have had pretty terrifying NDEs, but I think it's just like a terrifying experience in life. You're learning to conquer your fear. Period. If you never went through fear or shock or change or curveball or doubt, you'd never learn how to deal with any of those things.
That is so true.
So the
You know,
more
they're all
challenges, the more you learn.
right. They're all lessons for us. Um,
Absolutely.
you talked about reincarnation before. What's your stance on that? Did you get verification of that during your NDE? What experience did you get?
I
How do
got
you,
I got less verification of actually my past lives in my NDE than I did through the lady who taught me this system, Alice Worrell, greatest psychic I've ever known. Met her in 1980 when she did a reading for me. A couple months, weeks later, the class, her and I started practicing. We became very close friends. I helped her with her car and her kids, and a lot of stuff. And I mean, we'd see each other once a week. Sometimes, I'd take her to medical meetings and so forth. Uh, so all this time, I was always talking to her about spiritual stuff, and she told me about, because I asked, about several girlfriends, lots of musicians, family members, different situations I had been in, the protagonist, antagonist. Every one of these people I was associated with in a different life, in a
Mm,
somewhat parallel situation. And I can tell you about 20 or 25 of them that she told me in 35 years that we were friends. Uh,
mm-hmm.
and so, yeah, we've all been through numerous past lives. Of course we have, because that's how you learn. Because there's an infinite amount to know and learn, as I was lucky enough to see. And there's a continuity of lives that you can take to become educated, knowledgeable, and return to the Godhead, so to speak, which is kind of an illusion because we're really already there. We're just down here now experiencing the process of getting back there because we never really left anyway. It's
Mm,
all it's all a mystical illusion of infinite mind seeing itself. And you're part of it, and me a part of it. Uh, but as far as fear and later, don't worry about death. Don't. Our challenge is right here, right now,
yeah.
today, before us, nowhere else.
Yeah, because many of us live our lives every day in fear of dying, and we miss living because we're so
Absolutely.
wrapped up.
In
Yeah,
fact, most people who've had an NDE come back, the fear of death is gone, so you can really put your gusto into living because you're not carrying this sort of what worst case scenario. If
right.
God like me, will I go to hell? You
Yeah,
know, we're on a human experience. We don't have to get God to judge us. We judge ourselves.
right, right, right.
We know later what we have to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you think that free will is a real thing, and can it change? Like, have you ever predicted anything for anyone and maybe it didn't come to fruition because of free will? Because free will always changes what the future is going to hold, right? So, like, does that ever come into play for you where you tell somebody, I see something negative in your future, but because of free will, you can prevent this from happening?
Basically, because we do have free will, I absolutely believe in it. It's the most powerful gift that any human being has or could have because of this one simple fact. We may or may not be able to change our situation. We can't change our genes or history or the way galaxies lined up or quantum physics or the way your neighbor thinks about politics. There are billions of things we can't change. But the one thing we can always change is the way we look at the situation, ourselves, relationships, love, power, beauty, fairness, everything. We do it from the inside, and we can always recalculate that. It's not our situation, it's how we look at it. Because no matter what the situation is, if you look at it from a point of creativity, gratitude, can learn, can grow, can benefit, just like if you're playing baseball, and you
Mm-hmm.
get up there and you think, I'm going to knock the ball out of the park, you're going to hit more home runs than if you think, man, I'm going to strike out. It doesn't make you a fool to be optimistic.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It makes you, an optimist drives down a road with a bunch of potholes and is smart enough to steer around them. Because you ain't got to repave the road. A pessimist is pissed off. Pardon my French, but someone should pave this road. But why don't you?
Right.
You ain't going to pave the road. Use your intelligence to navigate through life's curveballs. And we do have access to unlimited intelligence, but we have to practice and decide to bring that into play, just like piano or golf or
Right.
raising consciousness.
Do you think we're capable of manifesting? There's so much talk about, manifesting our own futures, especially after that book came out, The Secret, and everybody was doing it wrong anyway. But what's your take on manifesting things that you want or desire?
Well, let me put it this way. I spent my life as a musician. I did not have a good voice. I struggled with a lot of depression and anxiety in my 20s trying to figure out how to make a living playing music. asked my guides to help me. In 77, as I came back into my body, I saw pictures of me playing piano and traveling, gave me something to work for, taught myself piano at 33.
Wow.
I started learning piano at 15, I mean guitar. But because I needed to have two instruments, because I wasn't a good singer, I taught myself piano. And 4 years after I started teaching myself piano, I talked my way into some piano bars. And I wasn't a very good singer and certainly not a good player, but I learned to entertain. And then I became a solo artist based on that. It's all about what you can do, what you can change, what you can learn through life's challenges, curve balls, fears, and doubts. You can always learn to be a better batter. And if you never got curveballs, you'd never get that opportunity. So thank God for curveballs and challenges and surprises, because that's how we learn. So yeah,
Absolutely.
don't be afraid. Life will throw you enough stuff to worry about. You don't need to add to that. You
Yeah.
know, what you need to do is look at it and decide, do I really want to be petrified in fear over this, or do I want to take this as a sign? Because I do believe that negative emotions, fear, doubt, frustration, anxiety, they serve as a purpose to show you where the holes in the boats are within ourselves, so we can get some duct tape and fix them.
Yeah.
We're not meant to be tortured.
Are you able to, as a psychic and a medium, are you able to communicate with clients, past loved ones? And if so, how does that work for you? What's that experience like?
The lady who taught me this, excuse me, I keep forgetting which side my books are. Alice Worrell said she talked about 25 different lives. When she passed away 10 years ago, her whole life I'd asked her to be my guide, and she is my guide now. So I ask her, and she kind of talks to me, and whether I see pictures or feelings or words, it's kind of all just a process. I look at the stones, I feel things. Um, what I feel, what life, why one thing might come in. If someone asks me a question, I may address that. And I always tell people I can't and won't answer every question, because some stuff is just not, you know, I can't
Yeah,
tell you when you're going to die. Hell, I can't tell where I'm going to die.
right, right.
And there's some stuff I won't touch. I don't do medical diagnosis. I'm 77. I got a bunch of doctors, man. I don't want to try to outsmart them. Go see
Yeah,
your doctor. I don't do that. Someone else may. So, yeah, I have all sorts of limitations I impose upon myself just because I don't want to screw up somebody's life. And I
mm,
don't try to tell everybody exactly what's going to happen. I say, from my point of view, you're going through this situation now to learn these things. That's what I see. Most people are pretty grateful because they never quite thought of it that way.
yeah,
Oh, this all really makes sense, huh? I said, yeah, it really does. And here's what you can change, and here's what you can't. But we all got free will. Again, the most powerful thing, they can decide to do whatever they want, or maybe consider some of this information or not. All I can do is the best I can do. And before I do a reading, I always meditate and consciously ask my guides to help me help people. I don't want to mislead someone's life. I don't want to confuse them. But I do want to use my humanness and my experience, both spiritually and through being a struggling person my whole life, to help other people. Because I
yeah.
certainly don't want to travel the road anymore, load gear, and play music. Been there, done that.
So since your NDE, have you had any other experiences like that, or like you haven't had any more of those episodes where you were reading other people's thoughts or prompting people to scratch their head and they did? Like, was
Not like
that
that. Not
ended
like that. But I do practice in little ways, both by observation and by intention. Example, randomly about 10 years ago, Sunday morning, I was watching the Sunday morning news. It came to an end and football came on, and I didn't care. I muted it. I'm kind of laying on the couch watching the game and thinking, who's going to take the ball? Where? And I started realizing I could predict the plays before they happened. It's like I was seeing the replay before, and I was amazed. And once in a while, I would do that and even write down the scores. And my roommate and my brother wanted me to gamble on it
Yeah.
because I was right on. In fact, one time my roommate said, called me and said, "Man, what do you feel about the UT game tonight?" And I said, "Let me think about it. I'll write a note. I got to leave right now." So I wrote, "This seems like they win by 3 or 7." And I had a big 3 and a little OR and 7. So when he came and saw that note, he said they win by 37, and that was their score,
Oh, wow.
37. And then I pointed out the OR, and he goes, "Well, I didn't even see that." So I wrote down the right numbers, not even.
Realizing it. Yeah.
But then I practiced that for a while, and I don't care anymore. So yeah, but I do practice stuff. 15 years ago, looking for my car keys, I searched everywhere, going nuts, and I finally decided, okay, this ain't working. Guides, just guide me to my keys. Just guide me. And I walked in to get a cup of coffee from the office to the kitchen. And as I'm pouring my coffee, I look behind the microwave, and there are my keys. I knocked them off the microwave behind the counter. Da-da! Instantly, within 10 seconds, 15 seconds. So yeah, I believe in miracles. I can't get Russia out of Ukraine or peace in the Middle East or 10 billion things. Believe me, I would change a lot if I could push those buttons. I've even asked my guides, look, take me at the same time you take Putin. Let's go. Bags are
Yeah.
packed. But I don't get to make that decision.
Yeah.
You
I
know?
mean, I got to be honest with you. If I had those abilities like you did, I'd probably walk into a casino and like see if I can make stuff happen. Have you ever been inclined to do that? Or
Well,
even play the lottery? Have you ever used your ability?
oh yeah, I'll grab a ticket or two. I've got my favorite numbers. Haven't won yet. Might not. I don't know. But I'll go take a random chance. Why not? Because even as my psychic friend Alice told me, dang this side, she used to buy a lottery ticket or two, and she said, "Well, you can't win unless you buy a ticket." That's
Right.
a fact. So once in a while, I'll buy one. I don't pin my life on it. In fact, I don't pin my life on anything except what I can know spiritually, psychically, and mentally. And that includes how I deal with other people, of course.
Oh, yeah.
Because when you have the light on inside or attempting to put new fresh kerosene in there, new good gas in your car, a new good pat on yourself, which is necessary, especially in these changing times, feel empowered, feel love, feel fearless. Recognize that all these curveballs and changes in society, which now has really peaked. Like I said, every nation is having a revolution. I saw this
Oh, yeah.
45 years ago. Uh, so it's a necessary period of time we're going through. And it's good that people start thinking about issues about should I fear death or not? Where's God in all this?
Right.
The pot is being stirred up, so we ask the right questions. Uh, because life will always tap us on the shoulder, our guides, our higher mind, our spirits. But we get to choose whether to acknowledge it and benefit, pick up the phone, answer, learn, or none of the above and go get drunk and not care and complain. That's free will. We get to decide how we're going to interpret everything. That's power. We
Right.
may not be able to change our situation, but how we look at it is real power. And there's
Do you think?
no limit.
I agree. Do you think that this global awakening that's happening right now, because obviously there is one, is leading us into what you saw when you talked about like the age of Aquarius, that awakening? So
Mhm.
is this the way you see it? Like it's part.
Oh, yeah. We're seeing all the cracks in the system so we can fix them, so we can get the duct tape and get busy. Um, and we got a lot of cracks, and excuse me, got some hiccups. We can
Oh,
only do so much individually. We can only do so much, but that's all we're supposed to do. It's
mm,
our part, and our part is feeling empowered, feeling love, and providing that to our neighbors, our friends, our relationships, If we can't change the world, we can change ourselves, and that's what's really important.
Yeah.
Because, proactive growth, recognizing we need to grow, evolve, and become fearless, and then taking action. That's how you get from A to B to C. Cause and effect. Yeah, I believe in miracles, but I also believe in cause and effect.
Oh, absolutely. What's your take on all this alien drone stuff that's going on right now? Like, what are your
Well,
guides?
combination of factors. You got people with drones. You got, you know, the idea of UFOs and higher cultures and other civilizations. Because I believe in infinite possibilities and multi universes, I say everything's possible. I
Right.
really do. Now, what Martians were in that UFO that the Air Force saw 20 years ago? I don't know. But there is higher consciousness all around us. If they wanted to eliminate us, we'd have been gone. Because you don't get to travel through space and time or manifest without some sort of higher intent and perhaps technology. And I believe as we grow in technology, we have to grow in intentions, purity for physical things to work in some way. There's some sort of protective, man ain't going to completely obliterate himself.
So
I'm not.
in the age of Aquarius that you saw happening in during your NDE, did you see anything in particular about that? What did the world look like during those flashes of
Well,
knowledge that you?
it's a long period. Age of Aquarius is, 23, 400 years. I did see it's a hotter planet. I did see there's more water. There's definitely going to be a rise in sea levels. But there's also going to be more exploration of space, of energy, of the sea. We're already seeing that, and that's what the age of Aquarius represents a lot of is technology and breakthroughs and so forth. It also represents chaos and change. And so we're seeing a lot of that across the planet. Like I say, a revolution in every country now. Everybody's peaked out extreme. Uh, so we can see what we can contribute to a better world or see how much we're complaining and not doing a damn thing to contribute. But we have to know the difference and see the difference. And that's why all this intensity is going on, extremism, to hopefully help us listen to our higher guides, our mind, because they are talking to everybody on the planet. But again, we get to tune in or tune it off.
Yeah. How do your guides appear to you? Do you sense them? Do you feel them? Have you ever seen them visually? I know
I've
during
seen,
you saw them, right?
I saw in '77. I saw them very clearly. There's several times in my life where, for example, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, I was living with a roommate out near the lake here, and he was going up to see his mom every week out of town. He was facing some medical issues. And one day he left, and I knew that that's the day that she's going to pass on this visit. Uh, and it's Sunday morning. He left Friday, and Sunday morning, lo and behold, she goes scooping through the kitchen while I'm cooking breakfast in a light blue dress with a gold thing around her neck. And she was saying, I'm out of here. She looked like a teenager, so full of energy. She said, I'm out of here. You understand. Explain to him, talking about her son. 15 minutes later, he called me and said she had just passed 15 minutes ago. When he came back, I told him about that experience, and it blew his mind because I described exactly the way she was dressed for the service before they even had it. You know, she came through with a dress before they even put her in it. You know, and I said, "This is not an accident." She said, "You to be at peace. I'm out of here. I feel good. I'm a teenager, man. Starting
Wow.
all over." So yeah, I've had many experiences like that. Some of them I can kind of predict. Some of them I can tune into, and some of them just happen out of the clear blue. The lady I met, Alice Worrell, in 1980, She was we talked about music. She was doing readings for Stevie Vaughan Ray.
Oh,
Stevie
wow.
Ray Vaughan. She told me then, and this is 1980, that he was going to pass
Oh, no
young,
kidding.
and he was going to go out with his teammates because he wanted to get right to the top. He was going to have drug problems, wanted to get to the top and go out with a boom, and he did. The day that accident happened, I was woke up 4 or 5 hours before it happened with a dream, and these 4 or 5 people were in this cabin like a spacecraft, a helicopter or something. They were all partying and laughing and having a good time, but subconsciously I started picking up their conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And the pilot of the plane was saying, "I don't want to go through this. I'll get blamed. I don't want to do it." And they all looked at him like, "This is our deal. We're all going out of time together here now. You're the guy that does it." He goes, I'm not gonna, I don't want to be blamed." And then a big bolt of lightning hit him right in the chest, as if to say, "This is destiny. This plane's going down."
Yeah. Yeah.
And I woke up, no idea who that was or why. But the next day, actually 4 or 5 hours later, they had the news that he'd been
Oh, so you had a vision of that before it
4 hours,
happened.
5 hours before it happened. But I had knowledge of his death at a young age for 10 years, 11 years. So when I saw it on TV, I thought, did that just happen? It seems like I kind of knew that, maybe from my friend telling me years earlier that that's how he planned to go. And, and she confirmed that's how you will go. That's your choice. You're going to get right up the top. And he had a affiliation with Hendrix, sort of
Yeah.
like karmic spiritual tie. Go out on the top. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
drugs had a part in both their lives. But
Yeah.
yeah, that I saw that in advance, and I called her about it. And I said, "Why me?" His brother should have had that dream. He's in peace. This has worked out this way. And she said, "Well, your psychic people sometimes get dreams about things and that have nothing to do with them."
Yeah.
And I went through that. I saw these pictures years ago.
Do you get lucid dreams still, like, or prophetic dreams? When was the last one you had? Was it recent? Can you remember?
I get some sort of prophetic dreams fairly regularly. They're entertaining. They're crazy. They're mixed with fears and doubts and so forth. But they're not so profound that they're going to shock me one way or another.
Mm.
Because I've already been through that. Ding. Excuse me again. Uh, so it's kind of like nothing surprises me anymore. In dreams, I dream a lot. Yeah, I do. Um, every night, several times. Uh, but I look at it as a free comedy show, free education, free experience, free breakthroughs. Um, I've already been through the biggest, most beautiful dream anybody could ever have. It wasn't a dream; it was going to infinite mind and back. So the rest of this is sort of just like cookie crumbs on the cake. That's okay, or crumbs off the cookie.
Yeah. Well, you certainly did go through it. That's for sure. I mean, and just getting hit by that car and not having any injuries or glass on you is
Not a
spectacular. Of
scratch,
its,
not a scratch, not even a feeling about it. Uh, and before I hit the car, I had absolutely no fear of it. Just like that's not even the issue, you know. Uh, and as my monitors pointed out, my guides pointed out later, that was just a way to launch you into get out of your body. And the fact it's a head-on car collision in the middle of a packed street means when you come back, there's going to be cops and ambulance, police, and all these grounding agents. They organize it that way because it's going to be pretty intense when you come back. You're not going. It's going to take you a while to sort this out. I didn't know that at the time, but when I came back, that's the case. And they confirmed later, 8 months later, when I asked them, "Why did I have this?" They said, "Yeah, we set up the grounding agents so you can stay on the planet, so you stay grounded, and that was necessary." Very
Wow.
necessary.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your fascinating story with us. It really is, and thank you for all the good work that you do and helping folks too during your readings. And you seem to be very considerate and conscious of the fact that you don't want to interfere in their lives, but you do want to help guide them, I guess. Is that the way to?
Yeah, the best thing, I don't tell people what to do. I suggest to them from the best of my perspective, this is what you're going through and why. That's what I try to talk about people. Not that in 2 months you'll meet a guy named Joe, because it may be 3 months and a guy named Jim, or it may be dead wrong.
Mm,
What I feel very clearly about and what I give the base my readings on is what you're going through right now and why, what you can learn. I don't try to nail all the details because if you know how the car works, you can go in any direction you want.
right, right,
If you don't know how it works, don't have the key, then you ain't going nowhere in that car.
right, right.
But you
Anything?
got the keys to your car.
Absolutely. Anything you want to say in closing? Any advice or anything you're working on? Maybe you're working on a new book. I don't know. Just take it away and.
Well, I'm working on life like everybody, and yeah,
Mhm.
I would like to encourage people to not freak out. We're going through a big world transformation. It ain't an accident. We're all having to learn and getting to see what needs to be fixed. Good. Boy, if we didn't see the things that need to be fixed, we couldn't take proactive action and fix them. So don't go crazy. Don't worry. Don't fear death. Every time we go through a challenge, a curveball, a fear, a doubt, I look at it as a fire alarm saying, hey, there's a fire in the kitchen. Go fix it. Go put it out and then cut the alarm off. Don't terrorize yourself over stuff you don't have any power over. Pat
Right.
yourself on the back for what you do have power over, and that's free will, because you get to decide how you're going to see or interpret any situation, good, bad, or ugly. And it's not selfish to see the glass half full. It's smart. It's not selfish if you're a Olympic star to run fast. It's smart.
Right.
It's not selfish to pat yourself on the back, forgive yourself, open up the doors of your potential inside, because that's where the potential is. It's all in your head, your heart, your mind. That's real power. And if you really want that, tap into it, meditate, practice. Every time you go through a fear or doubt, realize, oh, it's showing me a cliff that I don't want to go over, so I'll go east. You can always get empowered from the good, the bad, and the ugly by choice, by practice. But like anything, golf, piano, raising your consciousness, if you choose and practice, you develop skill. And when you develop skill, that process becomes second nature. So why not benefit?
So
Why
it's good
not benefit?
to like listen to your intuition too. I'm sure, right? We're
Ask,
all
ask,
intuitive,
ask. You
right?
got to ask your guides. They cannot break in your free will. Like I said, they can tap you on the shoulder. That's plenty of that going on now. But if you really want your guide to help you, ask them. Ask them to show you how to get the signs. Ask them to show you how to get the answers. Ask them to show you how they talk to you. We don't get everything, but the more we ask for and do our part, the more we're going to benefit. And
Oh,
that's
I
what
totally
life's
believe
trying to
that.
show us. Life's trying to show us that now, here.
Totally believe that. Thank you again so much, Gary. It was such a joy having you today. And I will be in touch. Maybe we can touch base again in the future, see any changes in your life. And again, folks, I will have the link in the YouTube channel. I will have his website, his books, and all his information. So be sure to head on over there and check it out. As soon as the show is over, I'll go in and make sure I have all that information. Thank you again, Gary. God bless. Stay well.
Thank you, Caroline. You have a good day and stay inspired. God bless you all.
Thank you too. Bye-bye. Thank you so much, everyone. It was really remarkable hearing Gary's story. I was so moved and touched by his life experience, and I hope all of you were too. So please be sure to head on over to my YouTube channel. I would greatly appreciate it if you did. That is Ethereal Encounters Unveiled. That is on YouTube. And of course, you can find me here every Thursday between the hours of 5 to 7 p.m. EST. And I'm always here every Thursday, God willing. This is the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, which is 105.3 and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. And every week, listeners will be introduced to an array of featured guests from various television shows, authors. And be sure to subscribe to that YouTube channel as well. You will get to be notified beforehand when there is a live show taking place. You will see everything from ancient history to ufology to paranormal to extraterrestrial conspiracy theories, you name it, cryptozoology. So be sure to subscribe to that as well on YouTube. And thank you again so much. God bless. And I will see you all next week. Take care.